Hello, I'm Derek. I'm a software engineer at Syntasso, and today I'm going to talk about why your Backstage needs a platform, or rather, why Backstage is not your platform. As platform engineering grows in popularity, many organizations are looking for ways to build internal platforms for their product teams. Invariably, they find out about Backstage and really, they get really excited about it. Backstage is an open source framework for building developer portals. It provides a software catalog that allows engineering teams to manage all of their deployed resources from a single place, both the platform engineering team and the product teams that are actually creating those resources and using them. It's also it gives a declarative UI, so you can populate Backstage in many different ways. It's a one-stop shop not only for the software and for the resources and services, but also documentations, libraries, websites. So it's quite flexible. It also gives product teams a button to push their deployments. So making it really simple for both platform engineering teams to build the golden paths, as for the product teams to consume them, like making the good thing easy. So it's all like the positive points make a lot of organizations take the route of building the platforms out of Backstage. So you may find yourself starting a new Backstage app. So you go to Backstage, you follow their docs, run a couple of commands, and then off you go. You have a Backstage instance running, and kind of looks like this. And I was like, okay, that is a little bit bare. So it's kind of what is the rest of it? But also it makes sense, right? You just bootstrap this application, so you need to learn about how can I populate it, how can I feed it with information. So you go about in the docs and you find about the software catalog. You find about how you can actually write those buttons that create resources, how you can populate the catalog with entities, and you are pleased to find out that it's all YAML. So you are a platform engineer. YAML is probably what you do most of your days. So you're good. You're happy. So it's like, great, I can do YAML. It's all good. You also need to configure it, right? You talk to your clusters, you talk to your cloud and other services that you use. And that's all right. It's also YAML. So you write some YAML, put some YAML together, and it's great. Now you have a Backstage, starting to take shape, start to take form. Next, you think about how can I customize it? How can I make it feel like my own, my like part of my organization? Um, you learn that you need to do a little bit of front end development, which is all right. You have your tools, you have your skills. You can go, you can find your way around it and put something that kind of feels like right. May not be beautiful, but it's all right. Then you go next and think about, great. Now that I have some entities, I have some templates. I want to actually learn about how can I make the templates do something, right? Then you learn about plugins. So the way that you extend Backstage is via plugins. Plugins add functionalities to many parts of Backstage, including the template. So you find out about the marketplace of plugins. You read their docs, how to enable them. Some more React. You actually need to open the code a little bit more and copy and paste some code, but that's all right. It's not that bad. You can still manage it. You can still do it. And then you go one step further and think about, well, how can I provide my own experience? How can I integrate that with the systems that I have in my own organization? So, for example, if you want to do a template that creates a bucket on S3 using Terraform, you may find out that you need to write your own template. Or you need to write your own plugin. So here things get a little bit more complicated because now you have to write some React yourself. You actually need to write some backend plugins, maybe some front-end plugins. So you need to start learning a little bit more about Backstage and maybe React and JavaScript and the architecture and so on and so on. But after a couple of weeks, you kind of have something put together. It's kind of there. The user can go create, deploy the bucket, and do the things. So your architecture at this stage may look like this. You have your Backstage directly talking to your public or private IS, running some Terraform, talking to your internal systems, all via the software template. So that's all great. But you start thinking, how do I keep these services up to date? Like, people created a bunch of resources. How do I make sure that they are still alive and they have all of the updates that they need? How can I actually combine lower level templates to provide more uh, higher level experiences in my platform, right? Okay, I can create a bucket, but what if I need to deploy a database that also creates a bucket? How can I combine those things? How can I provide those experiences? How do I adapt to new business rules? So if tomorrow someone comes and say, Here's a new rule. You should all comply. All the services need to look like this. How do you go about and change all of those resources that are already deployed? Uh, how many plugins do you actually have to write? Now, there is a marketplace of plugins. You have to manage those things, but also write your own plugins. And also, like, how can all the teams contribute to the platform? Do they also need to go through all the same steps and learn about all of those, all of that technology to be able to contribute to the platform? So you'll be like, okay, maybe this is fine, but you start to notice that Backstage is not really a platform. So you're missing a layer. You're missing something in here, and what we are missing is the platform, right? Like, what if instead of making Backstage communicate directly to those infrastructures, you actually make Backstage communicate through your platform, and your platform then takes care of all of those day one and day two and day n concerns, and also the moving nature of your organization, and that's where Kratix fits in. That's where Kratix comes in. Kratix is a framework, is the framework for building platforms. It enables teams to provide anything as a service via a concept that called a promise, and it really focuses on engineering teams, in platform engineering teams, and it really focuses helping them to build better platforms. So your new architecture may look like this. You have Backstage on the top level, providing that interface is a powerful UI that can be used by both the platform and the product teams to manage their services, while you also have Kratix as the platform layer that can both populate Backstage as new capabilities are added to the platform, and also trigger software deployment in response to Backstage requests, running all of the business rules and all of the defined all of the steps defined by your organization to deploy your services. And that's exactly what I'm gonna demo. So let's go ahead and switch screens. Okay, so here I have Backstage. And as you can see, I already have a few promises that I installed that I have available here. So I have a bucket, a deployment, a Jenkins, and a Postgres promise. You can also notice that those promises were collaborated, were added to the platform by different teams, but they are here available to the users of the platform. On the back of this, what I have is Kratix, and Kratix, if I do get promises here, I can see that I have my the same promises available. When the networking team, for example, installed the deployment promise, what Kratix actually did was to create a new software template on Backstage for that particular promise. So I can come over here and create a new deployment, for example. So I'm going to fill up the form. I configure it with some pre-configured values, so it makes it a little bit easier to demo. But if I review and create, you should see the Kratix accepts that request. And if I take a look at what happens on the back of that request, Backstage is going to send the request to Kratix. Kratix is going to pick that request up and start the series of pipelines, the series of workflows defined by the networking team to fulfill that promise, to make that deployment available. So you can see that the pipeline was executed. Kratix will look at where can I run this particular website, this particular deployment. It will find the worker cluster available and will schedule the deployment to that particular worker. So in a moment or two, we should see a new deployment starting up, a new deployment for the website. And here it is. So you can see that is already running over there. It took a little bit of time, but now it's up and running. So great. So that's awesome. Users can come over here and deploy their things. You can also see that that the website, the entity, the component referring to that particular deployment is already here. So the team A, the team that actually requested this particular service, can manage the resources from Backstage, providing that experience that we want. But Kratix can do more than that. So a user to deploy a database backed by a bucket, that it's connected to an app, we need to manually come over here and click a bunch of those buttons and wire all of those resources together. Kratix allow platform engineering teams to build more compelling experiences by combining lower level resources. So a platform engineering team could look at this particular deployment, look at what is particularly available in my as promises, and decide, well, what if I provide this higher level value? What if I provide a promise that combines those lower level values? So that was exactly the promise that I installed. And you can see that as I installed it, Kratix automatically populate my Backstage with both the promise and with a new template. So you can see that I have an app template right now. And a user could come over here and say, well, let me create a new app. Here's the image of my app. Database, I want none. Oh, I want some database, maybe Postgres, and go ahead and create. And similar to last time, what Kratix will do on the back of that is receive that request and trigger the series of events that are necessary to fulfill that promise in the form of the workflows. And it's interesting to notice here that the workflow for the app as a service promise is actually going to trigger the workflows for each one of the other individual promises. So you should see as the app pipeline completes, you should see a few other workflows coming up for both the Postgres, the bucket, and the deployment. So it is exactly what we see coming up right now. And as the times passes by, Kratix will again look at what are the available places that I can run this particular service, and will schedule it to run on the worker cluster. Here I only have one worker cluster available, but you could have many different worker clusters as well. You can see that the bucket pipeline is taking a little bit of time, and that's because it's actually using Terraform. So Kratix allows teams that are providing promises to continue to use their own technology, the tools that they are familiar with, and contribute to the platform in a more democratic way. So you can see that my to-do deployment is running, and my website is running as well. We can see my Postgres starting up, and so on and so on. If my user go back to Backstage, you can see that now I have a new system, which represents that to-do app, and I have entities as well, referring to all of those resources. But Kratix can do more than that as well. So the day two operations, what happens if someone comes and say, well, now every single instance of a deployment needs to have at least two instances, right? Every single deployment needs to have at least two instances. This should be HA. Kratix really allows the networking team to come and just update their promise, their deployment promise definition. And what Kratix will do on the back of that is immediately find, well, what are the services that I need to update? And we'll start to trigger the update processes for those services as well. So you can see that the pipelines for the two deployments that I have in place kicked off, and you can see that it's already scheduled to the destination, to the worker cluster. And you can see that now I have two instances of the websites and two instances of to-do app. So it really allows you to manage a fleet of clusters seamlessly without having to, go and look for who is doing what, contacting teams, doing all of that. That's all I had for the demo. So let's go back to the final slides. Though, as the platform, you can actually decouple your interface, Backstage, from your platform. And you can also allow not only for users to consume your resources via Backstage, but they could consume what it did not show in the demo. They could also consume it via the kubectl CLI, for example, or by a website that hits the API directly. So you need to decouple your platform from your interface so you can actually manage and deal with all of those two operations. Backstage is really powerful. It really helps you build those internal portals with the declarative UI, and that's why it's such a success. But it's not a platform. Organizations that try to go on that route, they find themselves sooner or later backed into a corner trying to manage the complexity of actually having a platform built inside Backstage. To be successful, you need to decouple it. You need to have a backend platform. And Kratix is uniquely positioned to help you to accelerate that journey in providing whatever you want as a service with that integration with Backstage and different portals, actually. So that's all I had for today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, hit me up on hello@kratix.io. We also have kratix.io, the website, and docs full of resources for you to find more about Kratix. Thank you.